What if India's next naval advantage doesn't come from a bigger missile or a faster warship? What if India has a warship that an enemy's radar cannot see? A mast that hides in plain sight? A technology so advanced that it can shrink a destroyer's radar signature by half? Japan calls it unicorn. Some call it the ninja technology. It doesn't fire a weapon. It doesn't jam enemy radars. Instead, it makes India's warships look smaller, quieter, and far more difficult to detect. India and Japan have announced their first ever defense co-development project around this cutting-edge technology. In reality, it could redefine how the Indian Navy fights in the Indian Ocean and against two increasingly capable rivals, China and Pakistan. Let's find out why this is a watershed moment in the history of naval warfare in the Indo-Pacific and for the Indian Navy. On 3rd of July, Prime Minister Narendra Modi stood alongside Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi in Delhi and called it a new chapter in bilateral defense technology cooperation. What the two leaders announced was India and Japan's first ever joint defense co-development and co-production project. The system is called Unicorn. It stands for Unified Complex Radio Antenna, also known by its technical designation NORA 50. It is, in the simplest terms, a stealth mast for warships. It is, in the simplest terms, a stealth mast for warships, and it will go onto Indian Navy vessels. But the significance of this deal goes far beyond a single piece of hardware. India becomes the only second Asian nation ever to receive Japanese defense technology after the Philippines acquired air surveillance radars from Japan in November 2023. The deal itself was historic because it was Japan's first defense equipment export since the World War. What India is getting now is something even more advanced. Not surveillance radars, a complete co-development and co-production agreement for one of Japan's most, a complete co-development and co-production agreement for one of Japan's most sensitive and sophisticated indigenous naval systems. Under this deal, Bharat Electronics Limited will lead manufacturing and integration in India alongside Japanese firms NEC Corporation, Sampa Kogyo and Yokohama Rubber. Make in India with Japanese brains for the Indian Navy. To understand why unicorn matters, one must first understand what a conventional warship looks like from the perspective of an enemy radar system. A traditional naval vessel is a radar nightmare of its own making. Dozens of antennas protrude from different parts of the mast structure, each performing a separate function. Together, they create what is called a radar cross-section, essentially a bright signature that tells an enemy exactly where a ship is, what class it is, and how to target it. Unicorn eliminates that problem with elegant engineering. It takes every antenna, every communication system, every electronic warfare sensor and consolidates them inside a single enclosed radome, a streamlined dome-shaped housing that looks like a single horn rising from the mast. Unicorn can shrink radar cross-section by as much as 50% compared to legacy masts. That is the difference between being seen and being invisible. Unicorn is not experimental technology. It is proven in active service. The technology is already deployed on Japan's advanced Mogami-class frigates and is regarded as one of the most sophisticated indigenous naval communication systems. The Mogami-class frigates are among the most advanced surface combatants in Asia. Japan designed them specifically for contested, high-threat environments. Their radar cross-section is estimated to be 2 orders of magnitude smaller than a conventionally designed frigate of similar size. Unicorn is a major reason for that. The stealth advantage of Unicorn is precisely relevant in the contested waters of the East and South China Seas, where China's PLA Navy and Coast Guard ISR networks rely heavily on radar fingerprinting of individual warships. By removing the antenna farm, Unicorn denies China the per-ship signal patterns it has spent years cataloging, thereby enhancing survivability and operational secrecy. This is the deal that matters most for India. China's naval intelligence apparatus has spent years building detailed electromagnetic profile of Indian Navy ships. Unicorn disrupts that catalog. An Indian Navy destroyer fitted with Unicorn will look fundamentally different to Chinese sensors than it did before. The Unicorn project is significant for another reason. It marks Japan's growing willingness to share advanced defense technology with trusted partners. For decades, Tokyo maintained strict restrictions on defense exports. That has changed gradually as regional security challenges have intensified. India is the direct and immediate beneficiary of that shift and emerges as one of Japan's closest strategic partners in the Indo-Pacific. The original framework agreement for Unicorn was signed in Tokyo in November 2024. What was announced at the Delhi summit is the formalization and the acceleration of that project. Japan is not selling India a finished product. It is sharing the technology to make it in India. This is a fundamentally different kind of partnership. The two countries already cooperate through the Quad, conduct regular naval exercises, and share concerns about maintaining a free and open Indo-Pacific. Now they are co-developing advanced naval technology together. That sends a powerful message across the region. Unicorn is just the beginning. Japan has now proposed transferring the design of its Mogami-class stealth frigates for co-production in Indian shipyards. Beyond that, there are bilateral discussions on Japanese radar systems, electronic warfare suits, torpedoes, and anti-ship missiles. Every one of these programs has been unlocked by the same policy shift that made Unicorn possible. Once manufactured, the Unicorn masts will systematically replace the older external communication arrays that is being currently used by the Indian Navy fleet. This means every Indian Navy warship in the pipeline, including the Nilgiri-class frigates, the Project 15B destroyers, and future indigenous designs, is a potential platform for this specific technology. For India, the strategic benefit is clear. It brings the Indian Navy into interoperability with one of Asia's most sophisticated maritime forces. And it tells every adversary operating in the Indian Ocean, the Bay of Bengal, and the Andaman Sea that India's warships are getting harder to find, harder to track, and harder to target. This deal is key for an Indo-Pacific where the balance of power is shifting, where the ability to hide in plain sight may well be the most important military advantage of all.